Well, here we go again. I must be a glutton for punishment because I'm going to talk about the Reform Party again. And I'm going to talk about the Conservative Party. And again, obviously, I'm very well aware that a lot of people watching the channel don't share my views on this, but this is what free speech is about. A lot of you do share my views. I'm not trying to be divisive. I went through the comments that everybody put on yesterday, and I have taken them on board. And obviously, I'm thinking very, very deeply about what everyone says, because the reality is what we're trying to do here is build a community. It's not me just giving my opinion. I've got to listen to your comments, read your comments, and try my best to respond to comments when I can. Obviously, it's difficult to do when you're busy trying to earn a living and all the other stuff that we're all doing. So what are my latest thoughts about what's going on in this election? And you know, from my point of view, my biggest fear is basically a massive Labour landslide. That's my biggest fear. A lot of people think I'm kind of digging out Nigel Farage all the time. That's may sound like what it is, but it's not the case. The reality is I am absolutely not terrified, because these things don't terrify me. I'm very concerned about what's going to happen to the country if we get a massive Labour majority. And the question everyone watching this stream has got to ask themselves, and it's a very serious question: can Reform form an opposition? Can they gain enough seats to form an opposition party in the time that they've got to stand in the election? And that's a question that people have got to seriously think about, ask themselves and say, is it possible to do that? Is it possible to do that? So that's the first question. There we've got some answers coming down there. Let's have a look here. If all the sunglasses, that's a great name for a channel. If all the sunglasses, Tories deserve 0 seats. I would agree with that. The Tories do deserve 0 seats. And this is where I'll come to that in a minute, Paul. This is where I am really conflicted, because from my point of view, I want the Tories to get a kicking. But the pragmatic side of me is saying, if we allow the Labour Party to get a massive majority, there's talk of like them having 400 seats or 411 seats or something ridiculous like that, they will absolutely destroy our country. And that's what I'm worried about. I'm worried for our children, our children's children. I'm worried about our freedom of speech. I'm worried about what they're going to do with the definition of Islamophobia. I'm worried about how they're going to come after patriots. They're going to have groups like Hope Not Hate and all these far left groups who have been targeting different people for years and destroying people's lives. They're going to have positions of power in a Labour government. It is very, very alarming having a Labour government, and I believe it will be disastrous for the country. I hope I'm wrong, but who knows? Okay, so we got some good comments here. What regiment was I in? I was in the Duke of Wellington's regiment, which is no longer exists. It is now the Yorkshire Regiment. But when I was serving way back in the 1980s, it was the 1st Battalion, the Duke of Wellington's regiment. Fortune favours the brave and all that. So yeah, that's that one answered there, Paul. Okay, let's go up to these comments. Start at the top here. Landslide is on a lot of minds. Yeah, I mean, this is the problem. What I want to see is what can we do to stop a Labour landslide? Now, if I thought voting for Reform would stop a Labour, split my teeth out, stop a Labour landslide, I would say everybody vote for Reform. What I'm going to suggest in this video, first of all, I'm going to deal with the Conservatives, and as the other comment said, as Evola's sunglasses said, the Tories really don't deserve any seats. I would agree with that 100%. However, are there some Tories that are worth saving? And I think there probably are. Now, I got a list. I rushed it together. I did it using ChatGPT. So please go and fact check it. Again, I was in a rush, but it's not going to be too far from what's actually true. So I put a list on Twitter, and that list is a list of basic Brexiteer MPs that stood in 2016, that stood for Vote Leave in 2016 and still have seats in Parliament now. Some of them won't be standing again, but a lot of them will. So my suggestion is that you look at that list We're getting some suggestions here. Steve Baker. Again, Steve Baker went a bit funny, but I mean, he seemed to be pretty solid on Brexit, but then he went a bit funny on the protocol in Northern Ireland. You know, so what I suggest you do is look at that list. If any of those MPs, and this is where it gets technical and it gets complicated, I know everyone's pressured for time and what have you, look at that list. If those MPs on the list are your constituency MP, what I would suggest you do, I'll put the link in this description to the pledge as well. What I suggest you do is find out if those Tory MPs share your values. If they share your values, because the Conservatives aren't going to form a government, if they share your values and they're on the right side of history, literally, and they're supporting what we support, which is stopping mass immigration, dealing with the grooming gangs, dealing with the religious extremism in the country, dealing with all the problems that we're facing, the knife crime and everything else, if they're on the same pages on those things, getting back to normal moral values, you know, looking at all this terrible stuff that's happening to children in terms of the trans agenda, all that sort of thing. If they're on our side when it comes to those things, then vote for them. If they're not, if they were just a liberal Brexiteer, don't vote for them. That's what I would be doing. And it's difficult sometimes. And you know, you might not have an MP that's going to represent anything that you want in this election. In that case, you've got to really think seriously about what is the best way of stopping Labour getting a landslide and a huge victory. Let's go down. Andrea Jenkins, yes, she seems to have been pretty solid on all this sort of stuff. What's this one say? Oh, Richard, Ulster needs you lot. You lot need us. Yeah, absolutely. John, listen, sorry, Joel, we 100%, many of my friends in Northern Ireland, loyalists, 100% support what I'm doing in GB when I go across the water. And I know many of my friends in England support what I do over here. I don't do much activism over here because politics is very different over here. And I think I can actually be more effective in England than I can in Northern Ireland, which is strange because it's a lot smaller country. Yeah, the Green Jackets were a great outfit, Paul. I did Brecon with a few Green Jackets. Really great soldiers, really good lads. Suella Braverman, yeah, there's an MP that's worth saving. I mean, you know, when you think about this, if you're in Suella Braverman's constituency, I don't know the demographics there. I don't know what chance she's got of holding the seat, but if she's got a good chance of holding the seat and you can make that happen, she's the sort of MP we want in the Tory party. Because the Tory party isn't going to totally disappear. It needs to be completely changed and overhauled. As I think, and we'll come on to this in a minute, as I think Reform does as well. Because I don't think Reform is ready to form a government. If people have just been brutally honest. Now, again, I get a lot of stick in the comments because what I do when I come on, I tell the truth and try to put my point across and give hope to people because I believe there is great hope. And the hope we've got is in the British people, not in the politicians, not in the political parties, but in the British people. And again, I was saying this to someone this morning. I said, what we need to do, we need to have the ideology. Then we need to build the community out of the ideology. And then we need the politics. So we're not ready for this election. That's the problem. And if we were ready, we'd be in a completely different dispensation. But unfortunately, we are not ready. And that's the issue that we've got. And I don't believe the Reform Party is ready for this election either. What have we got? This was just my MP was elected in 2019 after the Royal Valley seat being always Labour. He's been the best MP we've had, and I'm voting for. Good. Yeah, that's the Rotherham Vanaman. Obviously your real name. But no, mate, that's a really good comment because that's what we've got to do. We've got to be pragmatic. We've got to look at our local candidates and communicate with your local candidates. That's what democracy is about, and get involved in the political process. So just saying that you're going to blanket vote for the Conservatives, blanket vote for Reform, blanket vote for Labour, I think we've got to drill down into each one of the candidates, try and find out, get the measure of them, find out what they really believe, and get them in. Get the candidates that most fits your values. Now, not every candidate is going to fit all your values. Not every candidate is going to look at the pledge and go, oh, yes, I agree with all of that. But I would encourage you guys to look at the pledge. I'll drop the domain into the chat here just so you can all see it. And There we go. It's the Great Reset. Yes, I agree that they're organized, they're funded, but it's like Tommy said at that demo. This is a David and Goliath fight. This is a David and Goliath fight. So again, we'll finish off on the Tory party. I've dropped the link into the, and in fact, I'll drop the link in here as well. It's in the description of those. So excuse me, the way I'm talking tonight. It's in the description of both videos, but I'm going to drop it here as well. So that's a link through to my Twitter X post, or whatever they call it, my X post, with the list of Tory MPs that supported Vote Leave and currently hold positions in Parliament. I mean, actually, Andrew Bridgen's on that list as well. And if you're in Andrew Bridgen's constituency, my goodness, you want to vote for that guy, because he has been extremely brave, hoping for a miracle with. Yeah, do you know what, Lee? Do you know what, mate? I honestly hope I'm completely wrong about this, about reform and what's going to happen. I really do. I sincerely mean that. I hope I have to make a video the day after the election saying, sorry guys, I called this totally wrong. Reform have smashed it. Nigel's the Prime Minister, or they've managed to force a hung parliament with the Labour Party. I hope that happens, but I just don't think it will. And it's not that I'm being pessimistic. I'm just looking at how long we've got to go. What happens when people get into the polling booths? I just do worry that the splitting of the vote on the right, which I'm being accused of doing, but I'm not, because I'm saying vote tactically. I'm not saying split the vote. I'm saying if you're in if you have a conservative MP that is a decent conservative MP, don't cut off your arm because your hand's itchy. Basically, vote for that conservative MP if they're good. If they're rubbish, if it's a Jeremy Hunt or a Rishi Sunak, or, well, that other fellow doesn't even stand in Parliament. He just gets dropped in as Foreign Secretary. I mean, Cameron doesn't even have to be voted in anymore. It's a good job because no one would vote for him. So if it's any of those wets, I would 100% vote for reform. If they were wets, the dreadful Tories that have destroyed the country, yeah, that's tactical voting. Or if it's going to be a position where you're going to hand the Labour Party a seat, again, I would be very, very dubious. But what I don't want to do is confuse people, because this is complicated, it's confusing. What I'm really trying to say is, look at your local candidates in your local constituency. See what they believe in. Find out if what they believe in matches with your values. Like I say, send them the pledge. Please send as many of your MPs, if you're watching this, whatever constituencies you're in, send them the pledge and see how many people even look at it, let alone sign it, in terms of your MPs. Because I think that's a vital tool to find out exactly what your candidates think. Did I go to Speaker's Corner yesterday? No, I was in Northern Ireland. The next time I'll be in England will be for the march on the 27th of July. Again, it's just, it's impossible for me to work and do all the activism, do all the videos, and travel all the time as well. I'm based in Northern Ireland. That's where my family is. I've lived here since the 1980s. So I love getting to London. It's great. Love it. But I also love living at home with my family in Northern Ireland. So, okay, where are we going? Let's have a look. Neither the Labour, they back the Tories and everything during. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, this is the problem. This is the problem. This is why I understand the frustration. I understand why a lot of people are voting reform. I really do. And I'm not having a go at anyone that's voting reform. I'm just worried about the consequences of that. That's my issue. And also, I've got other issues with reform that I'm going to go into in this video, but that'll be later on. If Braden was still Home Secretary, she would have been well into the dinghy illegals. I hope so. But I don't know. I don't know whether she'd been able to. This is the problem. This is the problem. We need people that will actually get things done. We need the Home Office completely overhauled. And I'm looking at this, Tina. I totally agree. A new party does need to be formed. I 100% agree with that. I'm going to talk about reform in a minute, but let's get through all this. Lee, that's what we're doing. We're forming a nationalist movement. We're forming a nationalist movement that we want to have Christian ethics and Christian values. It's got to be values-based first, so we've got to have the ideology first. I'm not talking about everybody becoming Christians, nothing like that. But I'm talking about the old-fashioned British values. The just obeying the moral law, just doing what's right, and helping each other, loving your neighbor. That's the sort of stuff that made Britain great. It's you know, it's nothing to do with our ethnicity or anything else. It's to do with what we believe in, our ideology. That's what makes a country great. It's the country's ideology, and I believe that that's the best ideology is Christian Christian values and Christian ideology. So on the ITV news, a lot of older people, pension stories versus they'll be voting Labour. It's a massive worry, Dave. It's a massive worry. You know, I don't understand. I don't understand how anybody could vote Labour if they really knew what the Labour Party is and the damage it's going to do. It is a red-green alliance. There are hardcore Marxists in there. There are Islamists in there. There are globalists in there. There are these cultural Marxists that are pushing this woke mind virus. The Labour Party is dangerous. I believe the Labour Party is an extreme party, and I believe the Conservative Party is extreme on some things like global warming, etc., etc. Yeah, that's, you know, we're all in agreement on that. We need something new. We need a nationalist movement. We need a new party. But I think it's got to be. We've got to do it in stages. We've got to get everybody agreeing on the ideology. That's why I keep pushing the pledge. Everybody. I'm going to drop it in here again. I want you to go and have a look at this. I want you to let me know what you think of it, because again, obviously, you know, this is for the whole country. This is for our people. This is for our community. So let me know what you think about the pledge. You know, everyone's saying, yeah, we do, but we don't have that at the minute. That's the problem, Kel. We don't have that at the minute. We don't have what we need. Yeah, do you know what, working class patient? I get that, and I get where you're coming from. I'm gonna go into the Reform Party very, very soon, because I want to talk quite a lot about reform and what I think. Lee, that's exactly what I mean. Lee, I don't know what you're going to be doing on the 27th of July. I don't know whether you were there at the last event. If you were, I apologise. But if not, please come on the 27th of July. Make your way to London. It'd be great to see you there. You know, come up to the, up to the platform, and I'll be backstage faffing about doing something. So come up and we'll have a chat on the 27th of July, because I think we need to. A grassroots movement needs to be grassroots. So we all need to be talking to each other. That's why I'm doing these live streams, and that's why I'm saying to people that watched the stream yesterday and were thinking, oh well, he's off on one. I understand why you're voting reform, but I'm going to go into the misgivings I have about reform in a minute. And it's not to divide people. It's not to put people off. You vote for who you want to vote for. But I just want to, ask a few questions that, if they were answered, yeah. What's this one here? Yeah, Tina, 27th, United We Stand. See you there. It's gonna be someday. That's the other thing. Everybody get to Central London. We don't know exactly where we're going to be yet, because we've got to. This is always the thing. You've got to jump through hoops with the police and councils and this and that and the other. But we have a good idea where we're going to be. But I don't want to put anything out just in case we're wrong. Okay. But we've got a plan. It's going to be a great plan. No matter where we end up, it's going to be a great event. And I think, look, let's try and get a couple 100,000 people there. I think there was between 20 and 30,000 at the last event. Let's quadruple that. Everyone brings 3 people. Yeah, we're up to 100,000 people then, aren't we? Or thereabouts. My maths is great. Okay, so what's this one? Good evening, Richard. If Labour get a huge majority, they will create the political climate that will fall into a huge back. I hope so. I hope so, Calvin. But here's the thing. They are going to bring in such repressive legislation, and they're going to. I will probably, and that's why I keep saying, sign up to my websites. Give me your email address. It's really important that you sign up to the websites. You can either sign up to the Pledge or UK Freedom Movement. They're both connected. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to drop another link in here. And again, these are just for you guys to sign up to. Okay, so and the reason I'm doing this, it's not I'm not trying to grab your data. I just want an email address. That's all. You can just use it if you want, just for this purpose. I want an email address so that I can communicate with you guys, and we can keep in touch. And if the balloon goes up and I lose my channel, that I can keep in touch with you guys and we can continue to build the movement. Because what we should be doing is sharing all these videos with our friends and saying, what do you think about this? Is this guy talking sense? Is he a nutter? Is he got, has he got a brain in his head, or is he you've got to we've got to really pull together and try and do this. And this election, again, it's a wild card election. It's been sprung on everyone. Let's talk a bit about reform. Okay, let's talk a little bit about reform. There we go. Who's this here? This is Dawn Knight. My Tory MP is on his way. Yeah, he's a good. Yeah, I mean, this is the thing. If you've got a good Tory MP, vote for him. Get him in, because the reality is, if he's good and he believes what we believe, then when the movement starts, we need people that are experienced, because not every single person in the Tory party is rotten. Suella Braverman, I was on the anti-Semitism march whenever it was last week, last Sunday, and she was there, very minimal security, chatting to everybody. So we need these people to be brought along with us. We don't want some sort of revolution where we're putting everyone to the sword. That's not the sort of stuff we're into. What we want is our country back. We want that kind, gentle, generous country that we know and love. Okay, let's talk about reform. Okay, these are my deal breakers with reform, and this is why I have a problem with reform, or some of the reasons. Obviously, first of all, you all know I'm very worried about reform splitting the vote and ushering in a massive Labour Party majority. That is my primary worry. Now, if reform get enough traction, and it's very, weird things can happen in the current political climate. So what you would really need is reform getting 25 to 30% of the vote in the election, and getting it in seats in areas where they can actually get seats, because you can get large portions of the vote and still not win seats. If they get 25 to 30% of the vote, then they're in a position where they can really challenge. If they're getting over 30%, then they're a real challenger and they're a real opposition. So that's the first thing. If reform managed to, if they suddenly bounce in the opinion polls and it looks like they're up to 30% and the Tories are toast and in their rear view mirror, I would still vote tactically. If you've got a good Tory MP, I would still vote tactically. But if you're in an area where there is no good Tory MP, and maybe you're in a strong Labour area, then you vote reform all day long, because there's no chance of the Tories breaking through the red wall anymore. That ain't going to happen unless they've got a really good sitting Tory MP. What you've got to try and do in those areas, if you're in an area where it looks like it's impossible to have a Tory candidate win, get as many people voting reform as you possibly can, because you never know, you might pinch a few seats from Labour. That's if reform are polling really strongly in the opinion polls. Okay, and I know this is all complicated stuff. It's stuff I've thought about, and I'm not saying, listen, I am not a politician. I'm not a professional. But reform does seem to be getting a headwind and getting some momentum. So if you're in that sort of area where you can possibly make a difference, then of course. But if you're in an area where you've got a good Tory MP, and to oust him would almost be self-harming your own constituency, then obviously you vote for your Tory MP, if that makes sense. So you need to think about your constituency, not think about the national picture. Think about every single constituency on the basis of where you're at and what you need for your local constituency, and then obviously what you need for the country. Okay, what's this one say? A fake Conservative party needs to go. I get that. I get all that. And like I say, my big worry is giving them a massive Labour majority. I've never voted Tory in my life, as I've said before. And the guy that's standing in my local area is an independent unionist in Northern Ireland. He's been supported by the TUV, who are an affiliate of Reform in Northern Ireland, and also by the DUP. And obviously, we all know who the DUP were. Let's have a look at this one. Reform has momentum, and we must use Reform. UKIP, UKIP is a spent flush, and Tories, Labour, like that. That's all true. That's all absolutely true. And like I say, if they can pull this off, well, I will be very happy to eat humble pie on the 5th of July or whenever it is that the election's over. It would be an amazing thing. It really would be. So this is what I think. Okay, so I've said, you know, my fears about reform, and I've said if you guys support reform are right and I'm wrong, that's fine. I'll put my hands up to that. But this is what I think reform needs to do to attract the wider working class patriotic movement that's made up of veterans, football fans, working class patriots, bricklayers. We've got an army of bricklayers have joined the movement. Tommy supporters, ex-UKIPers that got totally hacked off by what Nigel Farage did. And there was a lot of bad blood after UKIP basically imploded with what seems to have been under the guidance of Nigel and also under the guidance of the NEC. That seems to be what happened in 2018. Again, I was a member then. I was very much involved with setting that deal up with Gerard Batten, Tommy, football lads, veterans. You know, that was a project I was intimately involved with from the very beginning. I'm not going to say any more than that. I think I've covered that in other videos. So the first thing that I think I think reform need to do. The first thing that reform need to do. Yeah, Jimmy, that's exactly what I think. The first thing that reform need to do is welcome Tommy Robinson into the party. And if they welcome Tommy Robinson in the party, they've also got to get rid of the ruling that bans anybody that was in For Britain or the EDL or Britain First or the BNP or whatever other party. They've got to get rid of that ruling, because when does that ruling, what's the statutes and limitations on that ruling? So if you've been involved in some dodgy political party in your past, the laugh of this is if you were a member of Sinn Féin during the Troubles, when Sinn Féin were tied to the IRA, you could still join the Reform Party. This is the irony in this. If you'd done a prison sentence for terrorism, you could still join the Reform Party. So they need to get rid of that rule. And the pledge is the ideal way of doing it, because if you look at the pledge, if you get people to sign the pledge, all the things that people are worried about with the far right, they get vaporized straight away. So you can't stand for reform, as far as I know, as a candidate if you've ever been in the EDL, For Britain. I was in For Britain. For Britain was not an extremist party. In fact, it was a very libertarian party. In some ways, it was almost leaning towards socialism. That was Anne-Marie's party. So the fact that there's a ban on people that were members of For Britain joining the Reform Party is bizarre in the extreme. It's a ludicrous rule. And it's completely anti-democratic. It means you can never change your mind. And it means there's never any forgiveness for anyone that's made a political mistake. Incidentally, being in For Britain wasn't a political mistake. It was a mistake for Britain getting wrapped up, but that's another story. So that's where we're at. That ruling, to me, that if you've been involved in the EDL or For Britain or whatever, that you can't join, that has to go. This is a ridiculous rule. Just make people sign a document saying, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm not racist, I'm not this, I'm not that. And that covers you. You don't need to ban people from your party. It's not like the 2010s where you had BNP surging and that they would have with entries and they could have taken over your party. It's not like that. And it's a stupid rule and it needs to go. So that's the first one. Scrap the one in, one out immigration policy. That's so clever. So clever. Net zero migration. In other words, I've said it so many times, you know, Bill, Jeremy and Tarquin, the accountant, the millionaire builder and the heart surgeon, they all leave the country, and Abdul, Asif, Mohammed come in from Somalia, Syria and Afghanistan. You know, that's not a good trade. That's not a good deal for the UK. So get rid of that and put a moratorium on all immigration, only bringing in absolute essential key workers in skill sets that we cannot fill. That's it. And they don't bring the families in and they don't get to stay here. They come in on work visas, and when the job's done, they leave. And if they want to apply to stay, well, they can maybe apply for British citizenships and jump through a whole lot of hoops to get there. But we've had enough. We've had enough of mass immigration. And Reform are not solving this. With this policy that Reform have got is not going to solve the mass immigration problem. It's not. I'm sorry. And Nigel Farage has got to be honest about that, and he's got to scrap it. because once the election's done, people will find out that it was a bit of sleight of hand, because net zero migration sounds like you're not going to have any people coming in. Okay, so what was the first one? First one, welcome Tommy Robinson to the party. Second one, get rid of the ban on people from For Britain, EDL, Britain First, whatever other parties are on that list that aren't allowed to join. Get rid of that. That's a ridiculous rule that the Reform Party got. It was a rollover from can't get onto the pledge. Oh man. Okay, let me look at that. Try it on it. If you can try it on a desktop, that'd be good. Should be working. Okay, I'll leave that with me. Yeah. Okay. Just look what happened at Wales under Labour. Yeah, Wales has been destroyed by the Labour Party. It's destroyed. It's absolutely destroyed. What's this one? It's sick of me to read. 2 12-year-olds have took a machete to a man 12 years old. 12 years old. Yeah, I mean, that's the sort of country we're living in. This has to stop. The knife crime has to stop. It can't go on. It's absolutely ridiculous. I'm dreading Labour getting in with a large majority. Ideally, they don't win or a very small majority. Well, that's Hope News. That's exactly what I've been saying about Reform. That's what I think Reform are going to do. I think they're going to gift the Labour Party a massive majority. I hope I am proved wrong, because if I'm proved wrong, then great. If the Reform Party become the opposition, it's a starting point. If they only get 2 or 3 seats, if they only get 10 seats, it's not a starting point, because we're going to have a massive Labour majority with the Trotskyite Keir Starmer, who is literally going to destroy our country. They're going to bring in all sorts of constitutional reforms that will make it far less democratic. The Quangos, the courts, all their chumocracy with all the lefty lovies in it will be getting more and more power. Ofcom will probably start censoring videos like this and dragging us into court. It's going to be a nightmare. The all-party definition of Islamophobia is going to be on the statute book. That's stuff that's coming down the road. And I blame the Conservative Party for this fully. I blame that pathetic, limp-wristed schoolboy, Rishi Sunak, who abandoned D-Day and ran off to do whatever he was doing and left our veterans, probably the last D-Day they'll have, he left them, legged it. So I absolutely blame Rishi Sunak and his little gaggle of globalist con men for what they've done to our country. I blame Boris Johnson as well for what he did to Northern Ireland with Brexit. The Conservatives are absolute wrong-uns, and I get everybody being angry with them. I'm absolutely fuming with them because they squandered such a chance to reset our politics and to give us all hope. And instead, they destroyed the country with lockdowns and furlough schemes and all the other stuff that they pushed upon us when that so-called disease was well, again, I don't want to lose my chance, so I'm going to be careful what I say. But yeah, it's the damage that they're going to do, Jay. It's the damage they're going to do when they're in. Does not matter who you vote for. They are, well, we've got to, if you want a republic, we're building a movement. I believe there's 30 million people in our country believe what we believe. And when I say that, I believe that they think there's too much immigration. They don't like the woke stuff. They don't like all this trans nonsense. And there's going to be a whole lot of other stuff coming down the road that they won't like either. They don't like the censorship. They don't like the two-tier policing. They don't like the bias in the BBC. They don't like the fact that people are being discriminated against because of the color of their skin. And that is happening. There's positive discrimination, and white people are being discriminated against. That's happening. There was a story about the BBC today about that. So all of this stuff is going on. And if anyone knows me, you know my feeling on skin color is we should not even look at someone's skin color when they're going for a job. It should be purely on merit. And like I said on the platform, I don't care what color you are. I care whether your heart's red, white, and blue. That's what concerns me. But there is 100% racism against white people in this country. There's no doubt about that in my mind. And we only have to see that the way the police treat white patriotic people or people who are on the whole white. Okay, let's keep going. the SNP. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, the SNP are wrong-uns, total wrong-uns. And it's anybody when you hear anybody say they're progressive, run away from them. You know, I was saying to my wife today, saying, imagine if you were married to a lefty, or if you know, got going out with a lefty or something. It would be a nightmare, wouldn't it? I mean, it would just be the worst thing in the world. Whether whether you're a bloke or a girl, if you started going out with someone that were a lefty and they were progressive, just man, it's the worst thing in the world. Someone that's progressive. Anyway, I need to get back to reform and what I was saying about reform. Okay, the other thing about reform, and Richard Tice, this is one for you. Stop allowing hope, not hate, to select your candidates. How about that? How about next time somebody sticks it on you and says, oh, well, this candidate said this or did that or tweeted this. How about you actually speak to the candidate first before you sack them? Before you just listen to what hope, not hate said? And maybe even stick up for them and say, well, what were they actually meaning by that? What do they, why do they feel like that? Because you see, the left are never held to account. The left are never held to account. If you look at, if you look at what's going on with the left, they never get held to account. They always get away with it. So stop allowing hope, not hate, to select your candidates. I think I said the scrap one in, one out immigration. I've already said that. Get rid of the ban on for Britain, EDL, etc., and welcome Tommy into the party. That's it. 4 demands. You do those 4 things, and we're good to go. You know, if you actually genuine and actually change a lot of your other policies as well. But the reality is, the country needs change. But in my opinion, this is what we need to do. We need to start with the ideology and what we believe. That's what the pledge is about. We start with the ideology and what we believe. By the way, guys, can you do me a favor? I'm going to drop this link in here again, and I'd just like you to click on this link and let me know this link's working for you guys. It's working for me, but let me know it's working for you guys. I've just dropped it in the comments there. So I don't know if a few of you can jump on that. What's that one say? Any decent? Oh man, decent golf course in Northern Ireland. Of course there is, all over the place. It's a green and pleasant land. Up in Portrush, the Royal Portrush, one of the best golf courses in Ireland. Yeah, there's loads of good golf courses in Northern Ireland. I'm hoping Labour are so bad they turn everyone. Yeah, well, that's what we all hope that. We all hope that. U-boats are good at stopping boats. Well, allegedly. I think party politics has failed. It has failed us all, but the only hope we have is politics. And that's what we need. Right, guys, I'm going to go. I've said what I had to say. Again, like I say, I can't get through all the comments. Yeah, call me saying, well, here. Oh, yeah, I want to say this about reform very, very quickly. Reform or Nigel Farage, it's amazing. We did the demonstration in London. 20,000 people, peaceful, amazing atmosphere, just a feeling of love and togetherness, all races, all backgrounds, all creeds standing together. We had Muslims there, we had Christians there, we'd Sikhs, we'd Jews, we'd atheists, we'd witches, and everybody, every single sort of faith, every single color, just a complete cross-section of British society and culture. Christianity was preached from the platform. Politics was spoken about. Great music, great sense of celebration. And 2 or 3 days later, Nigel Farage declares he's going to stand. That's not a coincidence. He sees the potential in our movement, and he probably wants to get his paws on it, to be honest with you. And who could blame him? But what we've got to do, we've got to build the ideology. We've got to keep building the community. Then we've got to look at politics. So we're not ready for this election. We're not prepared for this election. We've done one demo with the movement as it is now looking like it's going to shape up. So what we've got to do is we've got to build this ideology. We've got to build the community, the family, the brotherhood, the sisterhood. Then when we get several million people in it, then we say, right, we know what our politics are. We know what we believe. We need a party that will represent us. And the party will have to bend to us. We won't have to bend to it. And that's the difference. Anyway, guys, I'm going to go. Thanks for watching the stream. Really appreciate it. Had good viewing figures right the way through this, over 300, 298 at the minute. Listen, we've all got to make decisions in the next few weeks about how we vote. My advice is do it constituency by constituency and then decide what happens. Jimmy, I agree. Tories need Suella Braverman as PM. They should have got rid of Rishi. Rishi should go, but he's just a rat. He's a rat. He is a rat. It's as simple as that. The Roland rat thing is exactly what he is. He's just a rat, and he needs to go. He needs to go to America or wherever he's going to go when he leaves office. Vile snake of a man, in my opinion. Okay. Anyway, that's me done. I'm going to go, and I'll see you all soon.